We're here at EC Studios in Stockholm at the EA Play for Free event with Martin here, who's from EA Phenomic, and you've got a new title coming up here that you're working hard on, that's in beta right now. What kind of game is Tiberium Alliances?
So Tiberium Alliances is a massive multiplayer online strategy game in the browser. Well, that's a long word. So for those who are not familiar with the genre yet, you don't have to download anything. You just open a website in your browser, log into the game, and immediately you're in a deep strategy experience. So those games, they start off with you effectively building a base like you're kind of known from Command and Conquer inside your browser. You're raising an army, and outside of your base, you can see that there are thousands of other players. Actually, we're throwing 50,000 players on a single continent on one of those servers. And they all have their bases there. You can see the other players next to you on the map. And there are PvE enemies, player versus environment, this is what we call it. So non-player enemies on the map, which you can attack with your armies to get some more resources, grow quicker. But the most important part is that these players, they start to form alliances because actually resources on the map are scarce, so there isn't enough for everybody. So there's a pressure for people to kind of combine their forces. People start fighting over the resources. And the really interesting thing is how the player behavior is once they get into those alliances and the alliances start pushing each other on the map. Everybody's building territory, and there's a whole rich, deep social play behind the whole thing. Because it's not, well, like you might know it from the classic CNC RTS experience where you play a battle for 30 minutes. Those games actually play out over weeks and months. So usually we design our games in a way that you can play competitively by playing 3 times 20 minutes a day. So that's roughly a goal that we're setting ourselves. But you're doing that again and again, so multiple days a week, getting back to the game and always progressing, seeing your bases grow, seeing your armies grow, see how your alliance is developing. So over that whole period of time, you start making friends in the game within your alliance. You get to know your enemies who are next to you on the map, fighting those. And after a while, you get this whole rich social gameplay, which comes from actually alliances trying to position a spy in the other alliance. Some player kind of, they expel them from their alliance and try whether somebody else picks them up, and to see what are they up to, how do they plan to move across the map. So it's a layered strategy experience from, well, for something which for a typical strategy player is quite common, base building through fighting, next to a whole new level of alliance versus alliance movement on a region map, and the whole social strategic diplomacy layer which comes on top.
So speaking of that diplomacy layer, is that something that you force on the players, or is it going to evolve naturally with players contacting?
These games are all about the stories that the players create. It's not like we push anything to the servers. It's like we make sure that that there's a reason for people to team up, a reason to fight for something. So we make sure that the resources aren't enough for everybody, that there are spots which are more attractive than others, and we just see what happens. And what we see is that really interesting things happen.
One bold statement you made during your presentation was that this is the deepest, in terms of strategy, the deepest game out there, of any game. Can you expand a little on that and explain what you mean?
What I meant was that the genre is the deepest strategy experience that you can have out there, and of course we're very convinced of our game, and I think the strategy experience it's a really special one because it's not just this one layer, right? It starts with how you build up your base. Yeah, we know that from other games. It's how you fight your battles. Yes, we know that from other games. It's how you organize your defense. Yes, but then it's the whole complex movement of the bases on the maps. In our case, you can even move your bases, so it's not something static, so it's something very dynamic. It's like you can move whole cities. The CNC fiction allows that. But through having alliances fight alliances, you have this emerging gameplay and these storylines that we just talked about that the players create by themselves. And that's a level of strategy that I haven't seen yet in any other genre to that extent. Because to get to that point, you need the commitment of players who are willing to engage over weeks, potentially months in a game. Because unless you have that, you can't. Social behavior, making friends, doesn't happen within minutes. It doesn't happen within days. It takes longer to evolve. And a strategic gameplay, which is exactly about those relationships between the players, about infiltrating others, about headhunting players in another alliance, it can only emerge in an environment which is deep and engaging for a long period of time, and which gets people close. And that's what the genre does. And in my opinion, it does that better than any other genre.
So how do you approach microtransactions in a game like this, and what kind of pitfalls are there, and what kind of things do you want to achieve with the transactions?
Well, the important thing for those games is they are player versus player games, or alliance versus alliance games. So balancing is really tricky. What we really don't want to do with our microtransactions is break the balance. So we cannot give people some really unfair advantages in the game. But like David was saying before, we are having people who are able to spend a lot of time in the games. And actually, so far, almost all the games were unfair towards the people who weren't able to spend so much time. So what we're kind of doing is we're giving people an opportunity to keep up with a time-rich player. So that's effectively what our monetization evolves about. But we're making sure we have limits in there, we have breaks in there, we have ways for the non-paying player to get their hands on stuff, to make sure that it's still a fair gameplay, and that people who are not paying are still able to be at the top of the rankings.
And also, I think it was a nice way that you sort of balance out the world between the beginners and the more advanced players. Could you develop a little bit how you plan to do that?
So, yeah, like I said, we have this nice element in the CNC fiction that you can pack up your base and move it elsewhere. So, so we thought, let's make use of that. And what we do is we created a world where effectively everybody's playing on one large circular continent. And all
it's a disc world.
Yeah, it's like a disc world if you want to. And everybody is spawning, so beginning to play in a ring around that world. Now, there are strategic points on that world, and they get more important the closer they get to the center. So everybody wants to get to the center, but the center is also defended by the Forgotten, which is our non-player faction. So what happens is that people, as soon as they're strong enough, they started to attack the Forgotten and start to move inward on the map. And naturally, stronger players are quicker in doing that than the weaker players. So we have kind of a natural selection moving on by the people tickling inward faster who are stronger, and then they're automatically also compressed to a smaller space, because like as closer as you get to the center of the circle, the smaller the circle gets. So we're compressing the stronger players against each other, whereas the somewhat weaker players, or those who are not able to invest so much time, stay behind a little and are more on the same level of people that simply match to them.
And what's the roadmap ahead now? You're in beta. What kind of roadmap can you see ahead for the game?
Right now we're still in closed beta, so we're only letting in people in really small amounts right now. We actually have quite a lot of people lining up who would like to get into the game. But for us right now, the important step is get the balancing right and get it right so that the game is also fun in a couple of months to come. So that's the real challenge, creating a game which isn't just fun for a week or two, but which keeps you engaged for months. So right now we're making sure, are all the curves, how people are progressing, are they in line with our predictions, are they having enough fun, are we having the right amount of battles in the game? That's what it's currently all about. And then the next step will be to try out how will the game respond once we put the microtransaction features in, and the ways for non-paying players to also get their hands on that kind of stuff. Then we got to see how that behaves, and if that is working out well, then the time is right to go into open beta. So for us, it's really, we're never done with these types of games. Even if we go into open beta, even if we launch the game, we don't stop developing them. If we take our previous MMO strategy game, Lord of Ultima, which is still live and still growing, it's been live now for 2 years, and we still have a significant dev team on it, still putting new features in every day. So it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It goes on forever, improving the game. But the biggest milestones for us now is really make sure the game is stable, the game is able to keep the people entertained for weeks and months, and then make sure that the game still works with all the monetization in and everybody still likes the game the way that they do it now, because right now the metrics that we're tracking are really good. So we're hoping that we can get to the next step relatively quickly.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Thanks.
Pleasure.